Your dog doesn't just suddenly start barking. There are secret signals happening right before, and most owners completely miss them. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. The very first secret sign your dog shows before barking is something so subtle, so brief, that most people walk right past it without a second thought. It's called the freeze. Imagine you're in the living room with your dog. Everything seems calm. Your dog is standing near the window, maybe glancing outside. And then, for just a fraction of a second, they go completely still. No movement, no tail, no breath that you can detect. Just total absolute stillness. That moment right there? That is your dog's nervous system shifting into high alert. It is not random. It is not cute. It is a deeply wired survival response that goes back tens of thousands of years, back to when dogs' ancestors were still wolves reading the landscape for threats. When a dog freezes, their brain is doing something extraordinary. In that split second, they are processing a sensory input, a sound, a smell, a movement that has triggered what behaviorists call an orienting response. Every muscle in their body locks up so that no energy is wasted. All focus narrows onto that single stimulus. The bark that follows is not impulsive. It's the result of that freeze. Here's why this matters for you as an owner. If you can catch the freeze, if you can notice that brief 1 to 3 second window of total stillness, you have an opportunity to intervene before the bark ever happens. You can redirect your dog's attention, call them to your side, or simply move them away from whatever triggered that response. But most owners only react once the barking has already started. By then, your dog is already in a heightened emotional state, and it's significantly harder to bring them back down to calm. Start watching for the freeze. It will look different in different dogs. In a Labrador, the whole body goes rigid. In a smaller dog, you might only notice the head snapping sharply in one direction, ears pricking forward, all motion stopping at once. The eyes will lock onto something specific: a person passing outside, a car pulling into the driveway, another dog across the street. Practice catching it this week. Sit with your dog near a window or in a space where they usually bark. Watch not for the bark, but for the stillness that comes right before it. Once you start seeing it, you'll realize it was always there. You just weren't looking for it yet. The second secret sign happens slightly later in the sequence, and it involves something your dog is doing with their ears and their head that most owners mistake for being adorable rather than communicative. Dogs have an extraordinary capacity for directional hearing. While humans have a relatively fixed outer ear, dogs can rotate each ear independently, moving them like tiny satellite dishes to pinpoint the exact source and distance of a sound. Before your dog ever barks, their ears are already working hard, scanning, triangulating, calculating. What you'll see is this: one or both ears will pivot forward, sometimes dramatically. In dogs with upright ears like German Shepherds or Huskies, this is obvious. In dogs with floppy ears like Beagles or Golden Retrievers, look instead for the base of the ear stiffening slightly, or the top of the ear beginning to lift and angle forward. It's more subtle, but it's there. And then comes the head tilt. The head tilt, that irresistibly endearing moment where your dog cocks their head to one side, is actually a sign that your dog is actively processing an auditory signal they can't yet fully identify. They are trying to optimize the shape of their ear canal relative to the sound source. They are, in the most literal sense, trying to hear better. This is your dog's brain saying, I've detected something. I'm not sure what it is yet. I'm gathering more data. A dog in this state is not yet committed to barking. They are still in the information gathering phase. This is actually an even earlier window of opportunity than the freeze. If you can recognize the ear pivot and the head tilt as pre-bark signals, you can intervene even earlier in the sequence. The practical application here is straightforward but powerful. When you see your dog's ears swing forward or their head tilt toward the window or the door, don't wait. Quietly say their name. Offer a calm touch on the shoulder or back, or simply redirect their gaze toward you with a gentle sound or a treat held at eye level. You're not rewarding the behavior. You're interrupting the escalation pathway. You're stepping into the gap between detection and reaction, and that gap is where real behavioral change happens. Pay attention to which direction your dog's ears point most frequently before they bark. Over time, you'll start to predict, even before your dog reacts, exactly what is about to capture their attention. That kind of awareness transforms your relationship from reactive to proactive, And your dog will feel the difference in how calm and secure their environment becomes. Here's where things get genuinely surprising and deeply important. The third secret sign your dog shows before barking has nothing to do with aggression or excitement. It's actually a sign of internal conflict, and it looks like your dog is just being relaxed or a little tired. I'm talking about lip licking and yawning. When a dog quickly flicks their tongue across their lips, not because there's food involved, not right after drinking water, that is a stress signal. Behaviorists call these calming signals. Micro-behaviors that dogs use to communicate discomfort, attempt to de-escalate tension, or manage their own rising anxiety. Norwegian dog trainer and researcher Turid Rugge spent decades cataloging these signals, and lip licking is one of the most commonly missed by everyday dog owners. Similarly, a yawn that happens in a context without sleep, when your dog is alert, when there's activity around them, when they're facing a situation that makes them uncertain, is not boredom. It's emotional regulation in progress. So what does this have to do with barking? Here's the connection. Many dogs, especially anxious or reactive dogs, show these calming signals in the moments just before they escalate to barking. Think of it as the emotional pressure building up. The dog is trying internally to manage what they're feeling. They're self-soothing. And if that self-soothing doesn't work, if the trigger doesn't go away, if the emotional pressure keeps rising, the bark becomes the release valve. Watching for lip licks and yawns reframes how you think about your dog's barking entirely. You stop seeing it as sudden, unexplained behavior and start seeing it as the final step in a longer emotional journey. Your dog was telling you they were struggling, you just needed the vocabulary to understand what they were saying. The practical response to this sign is different from the first two. With the freeze or the ear pivot, you redirect. With stress signals like lip licking, the most powerful thing you can do is reduce the intensity of the trigger, not just distract from it. If your dog is licking their lips while watching another dog through the window, pulling down the blind matters more than calling their name. You're managing the environment, not just the dog. Over time, if you consistently respond to these early signals by lowering the emotional temperature, giving your dog more space, moving away from the trigger, creating calm, you are literally teaching their nervous system that they don't need to escalate to barking to get relief. You're building a relationship where your dog trusts that you will notice and respond before things get overwhelming for them. Most people know that a wagging tail means a happy dog, but that's actually a significant oversimplification, and it becomes genuinely misleading when you're trying to read pre-bark body language. The fourth secret sign your dog shows before barking is all about tail position and where your dog shifts their body weight. Let's start with the tail. Before barking, the tail rarely stays neutral. What it does instead depends on what kind of bark is coming. If your dog's tail rises above the horizontal line of their back and becomes stiff, even if it's moving slightly, that is a sign of arousal and alertness. This type of tail posture precedes a bark that's territorial, assertive, or cautiously watchful. The tail held high is a flag, a signal both to whatever the dog has detected and to you. That says, I am paying attention. I am in charge here. Something is happening. On the other hand, if the tail drops lower than usual, tucking even partially toward the belly, and the bark that follows is more high-pitched or frantic, that tail position is telling you something very different. That dog is anxious. That dog is barking from a place of fear rather than confidence. This distinction matters enormously. A fear-based bark and a territorial bark look similar on the surface, loud, repetitive, attention-grabbing. But they come from completely opposite emotional states, and they require completely different responses from you as an owner. Responding to a fear-based bark with firmness or correction can actually make the underlying anxiety worse. Responding to an assertive territorial bark with excessive soothing can reinforce the behavior you're trying to reduce. The tail tells you which situation you're in before the bark even starts. Now add the body weight shift. In the moments before barking, dogs physically reorganize themselves. A dog who is about to bark assertively will lean their weight forward, onto the front paws, chest slightly dropped, stance widening. A dog who is about to bark from fear or uncertainty will often lean backward, sometimes with one paw lifted slightly, as if preparing to retreat. Think of it like a conversation posture in humans. We lean in when we're confident and engaged. We lean back when we're unsure or uncomfortable. Dogs do the same thing, it's just happening in their whole body, and it's happening in the seconds before they make any sound at all. This week, try watching your dog's tail height and body lean during their most common barking moments. At the mailbox, at passing dogs, at the sound of the doorbell. You'll start to understand not just that your dog is about to bark, but why. And that second piece of knowledge is what allows you to respond in a way that actually helps them. The fifth and final secret sign is one of the most powerful, the most primal, and in many ways the most misunderstood signal in all of dog body language. It's the intense stare. And it happens right at the edge of the bark, in that final beat of silence before the sound breaks loose. You've seen it. Your dog spots something through the glass door across the yard on the other side of the street, and their eyes lock onto it with an intensity that is completely different from their normal curious glancing. The gaze goes hard, unblinking. The pupils may dilate slightly. The whole face seems to point at the target like an arrow. This is not the same as the soft, relaxed gaze your dog gives you when you're sitting together. This is something older, something deeply wired into the predatory heritage of every domestic dog. Ethologists call it fixed-gaze predatory staring. It is the same visual locking mechanism that wolves use when tracking prey, redirected into the modern dog's daily life toward cars, bicycles, squirrels, strangers, other dogs, or anything that reads as a moving or unpredictable target. In the bark sequence, the intense stare is the final warning. By this point, the freeze has already happened. The ears have already pivoted. The body weight has already shifted. And now the eyes are locked and the bark is seconds away, sometimes less. There is something critically important to understand about this signal. Holding direct eye contact with a dog who is in this state can actually escalate the arousal. In dog communication, a hard, unbroken stare is a form of challenge. If you stare back at your dog when they're in this fixed gaze state, you may unintentionally be adding fuel to the fire rather than defusing it. Instead, the most effective response to catching this signal is to break your dog's visual line to the trigger. Step between your dog and what they're staring at. Use your body as a gentle blocker. Or call your dog's name. Not sharply, not with frustration, but in the calm, warm tone that signals safety to them. And reward them immediately when they look away from the trigger and toward you. That moment of looking away from the trigger and toward you is called a check-in. And it is one of the most valuable behaviors you can reinforce in a reactive or vocal dog. Every time your dog chooses to look at you instead of escalating to the bark, you are strengthening a neural pathway, a habit of trust, that says, when I feel uncertain or aroused, I look to my person instead of going it alone. Over weeks and months of consistently catching this fifth signal, and rewarding your dog for breaking the stare, you will notice something extraordinary. Your dog will start checking in with you on their own, before the stare even fully locks. They'll detect something, begin to orient toward it, and then glance back at you first. That glance is your dog saying, I noticed something. What do we do? And the fact that they're asking you instead of just reacting, is the deepest possible sign of trust between a dog and their human. All 5 of these signals, the freeze, the ear pivot, the stress signals, the tail and weight shift, and the intense stare, form a sequence. They rarely all appear together in perfect order, and every dog will show them differently. But now you have the vocabulary. Now you can read the conversation that was always happening, in the silence before the bark. If this video helped you understand your dog even a little better, hit subscribe. We break down dog behavior in a way that's grounded in science but built for real owners. Drop a comment below. Which of these 5 signs does your dog show most often? We read every single one. See you in the next video.